Hello.
All right, it is 7 p.m. Everybody is here and accounted for. I understand that YouTube is rolling. Are we ready to proceed?
Sure.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Town Council. I think it might be good for, unless you are speaking, to mute yourself. There's a lot of background noise. I always mute myself because apparently I create some feedback. So on screen, the only person who is not muted is Councilman DePasquale. Thank you. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would please rise. I suppose you could unmute yourself for that, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you all just did that muted, which my mute suggestion should have come after. We open the meeting with the opportunity for members of the public to come forward with comments, questions. Ms. Baroni, is there anybody in the waiting room?
No, there is not.
Okay. With that said, we can move on to the first agenda item, which states budget final approval, fiscal year 2021-2022. But I think the best thing to do here, given that we do not have a final number for our education contribution, to continue this to a meeting in the future. Do we have a motion to continue the approval?
Do we have a timeline on this? This would be for the solicitor. When do we have to, can we go till next month or do we need to go before that?
That'll be by July 1st, so next month is fine.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We can continue the final budget approval to the next monthly meeting in June.
I'll second that.
A little discussion here. We may have there is another meeting in the works that might happen before the next regularly scheduled town council meeting, at which time we could include the final budget approval. So I would make the motion to just continue it, and then we can figure out the date. And apparently I have whose hand is raised?
It's lowered now. Somebody.
Okay. So, John, you're muted.
We don't have to set the date. We just have to say to continue it.
Correct.
Okay.
That's appropriate.
All right, I'll just make the motion to continue this to a future date.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have a presentation from the Warren Prevention Coalition. Are they here with us this evening?
Yes.
Yes, we're here.
Hi there, welcome.
Good evening. We have a student that would like to say a few words, and then we're gonna take you off to our evaluator that's gonna be very brief and talk about that long proposal that they gave you in a very short time. So this is Nicola McGovern, and I'm gonna hand it off to her.
Good evening. My name is Nicola McGovern. I'm a sophomore at Mount Hope High School, and I live in Warren. I chair the Youth Drug Free Prevention Coalition through the DFC grant. I enjoy working on social media, helping with the Take Back Drug Days and baking cookies for our police officers. I'd like to thank the Warren Town Chairperson and the Warren Town Council for giving us this opportunity to briefly go over some highlights of the race.
They can't hear you, honey.
You're too low.
I'd
Speak
like
up.
to thank the Warren Town Council Chairperson and the Warren Town Council for giving us this opportunity to briefly go over some highlights of our grant survey this year. I will turn this over to John Matson, who will briefly discuss some of our grant findings from this past year. Thank you.
Can you do that? And Maria.
Can someone let John Matson in?
Jessica, good, thank
Thank you.
you. Can we screen share this too?
Can you hear me now?
John, yes, we can hear you, John.
Great, okay. Well, thank you for having us here tonight, and try to be brief on this. The Warren Prevention Coalition is lucky in the sense that it's become a drug-free community and has drug-free communities grant now in year 4. Last year, when you are a drug-free communities coalition, you can apply for other grants, and the grant they got last year was called the STOP grant, which relates to alcohol, focusing on alcohol in young people between the ages of 12 and 17. But really, it extends beyond that. It extends to the whole community. These grants are mainly 2 purposes. One is to create a broad-based community coalition that serves the needs of the community and trying to identify what the key causes are of substance use by young people. And secondly, was to come up with plans and strategies to address those substance abuse issues that are there. So we've been collecting data for some time. I went back, I was asked to go back and do a little bit of a trends analysis. I know I started doing some in 2013. We did the Communities That Care survey, and the Communities That Care survey then was a broader based survey. Then also we did I developed a survey called to make it easier for everybody to fill out, called the Health and Wellness Survey, which we took in 2017, 2019, and 2020. But the grades that were selected in those times were between like 7th and 10th grade. Last year we did all of them, 6th to 12. And then the Rhode Island Student Survey was done in 2018, but it only focused on 11th and 12th graders. So I took the data that we got from this year's 2020, the 11th and 12th, and compared it.
Disabled participants. screen sharing.
So anyway, we have 4 national outcome measures that the federal government expects us to collect data on. Really the key one is last 30-day use. We asked students in the past 30 days, have you tried one of these substances? Have you had a drink of alcohol? Have you smoked a cigarette? Have you smoked marijuana?
My desktop.
And what we've seen is an interesting, I think, a really positive decline in use, in particularly of marijuana. It's been going down some, which I was actually surprised to see, but it's been happening.
I put it up.
We're seeing also that
Sorry, John.
alcohol use,
Wait. John, I'm trying to put up the chart so it'll be
okay.
easier. Okay, sorry. It was
That's
just giving
okay.
me a hard time. It'll be easier for everybody to look at, but it's not allowing me to, hold on.
The graph.
Sorry, guys.
Maria, you have to open the document and then click on it.
I saved it to my desktop and I can't get it. Yikes, I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Oh, your email is up right now.
Okay, there it is,
That's it.
sorry.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it is.
What do you see that we don't
Yeah,
see?
Let's see.
everyone's seeing your email.
You're not seeing my chart?
No.
You don't see the graph?
Really?
Share this tab instead of the other one.
Okay, so how do I share this tab?
You are,
Open the PDF in your email and then hit open.
I did.
Well, you didn't click open when you opened it.
how come we,
Just share it, yeah.
there you go.
Can you see it now?
No.
Sorry, guys, I apologize.
Close?
There
Oh,
you
there
go.
you go. There you
Thank you, sorry.
go. Okay.
All right, well, let's look at the charts, the data we have before us, you know, and to compare the data, I had to cut out some of the others that did not fit together, the questions, and we look at grades 7 to 10 because those are the grades that can actually be impacted, I think, by the programming. I also separately looked at 11th and 12th graders whose numbers are much higher in usage rates than the 7th through 10th graders, which is clear that that's how it works at times. But what we found out was that at this time, about 14% of the students between 7th and 10th grade said that they had used alcohol in the last 30 days. Now, it sounds like a lot, but when I looked at the data from 2013, there was 27% that were saying the same thing. And then when we look, the one issue I do warn about is the numbers for the 8th grade seem to be higher than I've seen before for other middle schools as well as for Warren and Bristol. And they had 19.2% of the kids this year said that they had had a drink in the last 30 days. Now, I do think there is a COVID impact there, that they're at home a lot and maybe they're at home alone a lot. And that could be one of the purposes of that, reasons of that. But every other substance, there was declines. Yeah, and when we looked at marijuana and alcohol among the older students, the last 30-day use of marijuana had actually dropped by 12.4% and alcohol by almost 5%, which I do think there is definitely a lack of social sources. The other thing is they always said that one place they would get first contact to these substances is at a party. And clearly there's not as many parties going on right now that are unsupervised as there were during a regular school year. The other thing that's really interesting is how far vaping, I just lost it, how far vaping has dropped. And that's only a couple of years that we've been looking at that data. It dropped from about 25% of the kids that were, this is the all high school, 9 through 12, saying that they had used a vape or an e-cigarette in the last 30 days. That number in 2020 was down to 13.7. Well, that's more than a 10% drop, which is is very statistically valid and very good for local conditions. I do think probably some of the vaping things that were going on were part of as much as a fad as anything else. And then now data has come out showing the dangers of it. And I think more and more we focus on that, it'll be more like tobacco. They still have a high dislike of tobacco products, and that was the lowest. It was less than 1% of the kids said that they smoked tobacco or cigarettes at all in the last 30 days. So that's good news. Peer disapproval is another factor that we look at. That's looking at how your perception of how your peers think it would be for you to do something. And peer disapproval was really high, which is a good thing. You want to have it up high. It was more like 80 to 90% for the 7th through 10th graders. And it's been going up. The only one thing it doesn't go down goes down for marijuana as the students get older. So by 11th and 12th grade, in 7th and 8th, it was probably 80 to 90% that said it wasn't something they approved of. By 12th grade, I think it was 39% or 40%. So there is a high tolerance for students for marijuana use, but not for alcohol. I mean, alcohol disapproval was over 70%. Another factor we look at is parent disapproval, and looking at grades 7 to 10, really across the board and even up through 11th and 12th grade, parent disapproval, students' perception of parent disapproval was over 90% for every substance that, tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, as well as prescription drugs and obviously opioids and things along that line. So there really is a lot of, at least from the kids, a perception that their parents don't want them doing these things, at least for the majority of kids. So we see that, but and we ask them, another question, we ask them personally, do you think it's okay to do this? Meaning, use alcohol, smoke marijuana. And, once again, marijuana becomes something that they see as more okay than anything else. About 30% of the kids responded that it was okay to smoke marijuana on a once or twice a week. So that was an interesting finding too. Perceived access to the substance is interesting because we ask how hard or easy it is to get tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs. Tobacco and alcohol, well, tobacco was still moderately higher than marijuana, but about the same. Alcohol surged. Alcohol was way up as far as its ability to be accessed. And so that how easy it is to get it, whereas prescription drugs were very low. So that's a good thing. And we've seen declines in most everything. The only thing that has really increased during this last COVID year was the use of alcohol. And that seems to have gone up over, it's gone down overall for the last 8 years, but for the last 2 years, we've seen quite an increase in alcohol consumption, at least, that they're saying that they're drinking. And the last thing we can touch upon is the impact of COVID. And here's the other kind of interesting thing, which always fits in with the kids, is students in grade 8, 9, and 10, they all felt that there was a big increase in everything. They thought there was almost a 40% increase in vaping and alcohol use and marijuana use and marijuana products such as edibles and hash oil and things like that. When in fact, the only area that went up, it seems to be in last 30-day use, is alcohol. All the others went down significantly. So, it's an interesting thing. We also ask a question, how honest were you on the survey? And this time around, over 90% of the kids said that yes, they answered all the questions honestly. Another 8.9% said mostly, and only 1% said no, we didn't answer. But then we asked them also, what about your peers? What about the other students? Do they answer honestly? This is the broadest spread I've ever seen, is that 8% of the kids said, yes, my peers answered honestly. About 30 said mostly, but also about 35% said no, they didn't. And others said they just didn't know. But that discrepancy is really interesting because the perception of use for, like we just saw, is higher there, but the actual use rates are far lower. And we're on a downward trend, and we've been on a downward trend for 20 years now, and it continues. I think there's a lot of good things going on as far as the educational components and what's going on in most houses, so most households. Anyway, are there any questions? I mean, I have a lot of other data we could share at some other point, but that's kind of the key things that we're looking at right now. Oop, am I still there?
Yes, I don't have any questions.
I was afraid that I might have lost you.
Thank you for the work.
Sure, thank you. Well, it's been a great honor to be able to help and work on this. It's something the whole state needs to work on, and we need to pay attention to what our kids are up to and what's going on.
I do have a question,
Mental
Mr.
health,
Gadsden.
too. Yes.
Hi. This is Councilman Heckert.
Sure.
Yeah, very good work on this. You would expect these numbers to change as we move out of the COVID conditions, I would imagine. Probably come back to where we were maybe in 2019 or that direction.
That's a good question. I am afraid it may even go higher than in the past, because we're going to see a lot of mental health and trauma issues that haven't emerged yet. And there'll also be, I think, just an overzealous reaction, like people do once they are freed again to do something. But that could be a temporary bounce, and I don't really see it going anywhere near the numbers that we had, say, in 2017 or 2013. But I would anticipate to some degree, yes, I think you're right, there will be a difference. But we'll see. We'll do a survey again next year and see what comes up.
Obviously, yep.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, how is the survey administered? At what time of the year, day, in class, out of class, take
Well,
home?
we usually do it during the school year. when we can, it's usually, I like to get it done in February, anywhere from December to February is the best time to do it. I know last year we had to do, we couldn't get in until, I think it was like the end of May or something like that, which is late. But normally it would be between December and March, really, 1st of March, if we can too. And then we do it, we have it, so it's electronically done now, because I put it up on SurveyMonkey and the kids go in, and it only takes them about 10 to 12 minutes to complete the survey. They do it electronically. They often do it in their home rooms or in, advisory period. And that's been the most successful way to get it completed. Our overall rates of return for Bristol Warren School District have been very high. We've been averaging over 70 to 75%, sometimes up to 80. And the state only requires a 60%. So you're quite above what most other school districts are seeing as far as return rates. And the teachers get instructions. They get an instruction sheet to let them know what they need to do and how to pay attention to what's going on.
Thank you. And they're anonymous?
Yeah, oh yeah, everything's anonymous. That's
Okay.
something we also, they have to be anonymous. That's the thing, is
I figured.
all the data we collect is anonymous, both quantitative and qualitative. We often follow up with focus groups and interviews after we get the survey data back, but even there, I don't know anybody's name. I don't, they set it up, so I talk to the young people and we get the notes, we get information. We don't record anything. We use members of the coalition to take notes for us, and then I do some analysis using different types of software to see how it matches up between the quantitative and qualitative data.
And Carrie, the surveys are approved by the federal government before we do them.
Right. And the state. I mean, I had to get the
And the
state
state.
and the feds to approve it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting, thorough, well done. I don't know how to describe the feeling in seeing this information as being, fully positive, because, we want our students to be making healthy choices all the time, but it's good to know that they know that their habits are being, thought about and watched, and that their community cares enough to follow along. I guess there's that positive. It's good to know that vaping is going down. I like the characterization of it as being somewhat as more of a fad. I don't notice the vape, those little cartridges all over the place any longer. I used to see them in the street, in the grass, everywhere. I haven't noticed one in the longest time, so that's good.
One thing that is strange, when you think about the access to alcohol and the alcohol consumption, one would think that maybe it would have gone down since they've been in the house as a family unit? Or do you think it's because this population has been in the house alone over the past year?
I think your second point is the one that's probably more accurate, in the way that, there's not, the parties aren't going on anymore, and the access to like older students or other people isn't there right now. So the only real access points they have are pretty much in people's homes. And, not everybody can be home all the time with the kids there. And, it's even if they sneak a beer or they find where the liquor cabinet is. I would recommend for people to start locking up their liquor cabinets, but obviously they had a lot more time at home, and also a lot of, time that was, free. They weren't doing as much, or they were not doing it observed as much, or having contact to adults.
There's also a couple of popular apps that you can order alcohol. They'll come right to your door, and they don't ask you your age or identification when they drop it off. I downloaded them on my phone. I did it myself, asking for nothing.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, again, thank you. All we can try to do is steer them in the right direction.
That's right. We try. And thank you all for your support. We appreciate it.
Anne Marie, Maria, Michael, all of you, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
time. Mostly-
Thank you all. Well done.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next, we have a resolution. I will read this. This is a resolution that has already been passed in both Bristol and in Barrington. Save for a few words, it is almost the same document. It is titled Hate Has No Home in Warren. Whereas the town of Warren recognizes the harm caused by Nazism, neo-Nazism, and nationalist extremism to hate crime survivors, their communities, and the many veterans who fought and defeated Nazism and live today with the hidden scars of World War II. And whereas stickers, vandalism, and other propaganda celebrating Nazism, neo-Nazism, and nationalist extremism have recently been found in Warren, Bristol, and Barrington. And whereas these symbols of hate are used to glorify unfathomable atrocities committed under Nazism and by other white supremacist groups against Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, people who are Jewish, people of Asian and Pacific Island descent, refugees, immigrants, people who have disabilities, and members of the LGBTQIA+ community. And whereas we have concern for the people who live, work, learn in, visit, or pass through Warren, and we strive to be a welcoming and affirming town that celebrates the humanity of all who wish to be a part of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Warren supports and recognizes the Warren Police Department's professional expertise and dedicated response in investigating and protecting our community from hate crimes. And be it further resolved that the town of Warren condemns hate crimes, hateful acts, and public displays of hate symbols in our community in the strongest possible terms, and unequivocally declares that hate has no home here in Warren. Passed as a resolution of the Warren Town Council this 11th day of May. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion, we accept the resolution.
Second.
Thought I made the motion to approve it.
Oh. I don't
We
know.
have, well, we have a motion and we have a second at the very least, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Continuing on, next we have the interviews. There is still one position open on the Conservation Commission. We have one full position and one alternate position for the Economic Development Board. There are two applications in our packets. One is carried over from last month, but that applicant has not made themselves available. I don't know if that person is here this evening. I see that we do have the newer applicant here, Nicole Lyons, and I guess Nate Louis Silva is in the ether and is probably not interested. So in my opinion, given his neglect in appearing last month and this month, we pass his application into the circular bin and recycle. Ms. Lyons, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you for being here. So you are applying for the Economic Development Board. You have a very impressive resume here.
Thank you.
I will let you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to serve on this board, and then open up questions to the council.
Absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Dr. Nicole Lyons, and I am currently a resident of Warren. I have lived here since 2017, and I originally am from the faraway town of Bristol. So I am from the area. I graduated from the Bristol Warren school system in 2006. Always knew I wanted to be in education. I've always been very passionate about education and the town that I came from and the area that I came from. And so I've kept it local. I went to Providence College. I graduated with my BA in secondary education in English. I then quickly went into a master's program. I got my master's in education administration. And then I went to get my doctorate with a focus on education, leadership, and adult development. So I've clearly spent all of my time in school. I think the majority of my life. And I wanted to bring that up because education has played a very, very important part of my life. It's been an important part of my life. And that is because the school system that I went through gave me a sense of belonging. And so did the area in which I came from. And I moved to Warren in 2017 with my husband, and Warren has given me that same feel and that sense of belonging. We love where we live. And we love that we can walk down the street into the bike path and take advantage of the amenities and shop local and really feel part of a community. And when I saw the opening on the Economic Development Board, I just thought this would be a great opportunity for me to give back to the town that I live in and to try to apply some of the skills and education that I have. I currently am the college and career coordinator in the Bristol Warren Regional School District. And prior to that, I served at Davies Career and Technical High School as an administrator and an English teacher.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Madam President, if I may, I don't want to take any time away from any of the council members, but I have had the distinct pleasure of meeting Nicole Lyons, and I will gladly make the motion to approve her position to the Economic Development Board. But I don't want to take anybody away from whether or not they want to ask her a question, but she would be a fantastic fit for the Economic Development Board.
Thanks, Steve.
I will second that motion.
Ronan?
Yes, Mr. Rulli, our planner, is with us this evening, who acts as liaison to the Economic Development Board. I believe he may have a question for you.
Good evening, Nicole.
Hi,
Just a
Bob.
couple of things. I don't know if you're aware that unlike other boards, the Economic Development Board meets in the mornings during the week, generally at 8 o'clock. I don't know if that poses a problem.
Honestly, I don't think it will, but I'll definitely pass it by my boss, and I can get back to you. But part of my position at Mount Hope High School and is forming business partnerships. So I'm in and out of the building all the time in businesses, but I'll pass it by him and make my boss to make sure it's okay.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question. I mean,
Sure.
What is it that, what's your perception of what the Economic Development Board does?
So it's my perception that the Economic Development Board is here to help the current local businesses grow and to help them increase their diversification. And it's also part of our job on the Economic Development Board to not only support the local businesses, but also to promote Warren and the economic climate that we have here, and just how to make it better for businesses and how to bring businesses here in a very safe and orderly fashion, while still considering the context of Warren and what is really true to Warren.
I think he would be a fine addition. We have the former president of Massasoit Community College and previous to that, Manchester Community College on the board. So you're our second PhD. And one of the initiatives that the ADB is currently undertaking is trying to do more outreach with some of the senior students at Mount Hope to see if there's ways to engage them in interaction with the business community as well as manufacturers. So I hope that you are able to join us, and I welcome your participation, and thank you again.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity.
All righty, Dr. Lyons, we have a motion and a second to appoint you. I just have one quick question myself, and one that I think will be asked regularly. Have you attended a meeting of the Economic Development Board yet?
I have not attended a meeting of the Economic Development Board, but I have read the minutes and previous agendas and the resolution, Warren Town Council Economic Development Board establishment.
Great, that is good to know. So with that, Councilman Hecker, do you have a question?
Not really. I think Dr. Lyons would make a great addition, as has already been expressed. But should the appointment be contingent on her ability to make the time to attend these meetings?
That can be added to the motion. So with that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I believe you have the full support of the Warren Town Council. Thank you very much for your application and looking forward to getting you to work.
Thank you so much.
All righty. We
Back.
also, okay, we have one position available, or we still have an alternate position open on the EDB, and we have one position open on the planning board, and one position, or two positions open on the Voluntary Historic District Committee Board of Appeals. So with that, I think we need a motion to advertise those vacancies.
I'll make a motion. We advertise the vacancies. I'm okay going at least one more week in the paper as well as the website, because the planning board is one of the most important positions we have in the town, so.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes. We have the two different, the regular and the executive session from April 13th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept both the regular scheduled minutes and the executive session minutes from the April 13th, 2021 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have P1 and P2, which is on page 9. Are there any members of or any department heads who have any issues with either of these petitions? DPW and or the clerk's office?
I'll make a motion. We pass the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the consent agendas, P1 and P2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. And next we have P3. This is request for an MFE, which is the Mobile Food Establishment Permit from Max Screaming Corn and Tacos. This is Sarah McMillan of 2 Palmer Street in Barrington, 02806.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, so I recently purchased my food truck. It's Tacos and Street Corn. I'm renting space from Hope in Maine for storage, and I was hoping to be able to have the opportunity to sell my food in Warren, whether or not it's down at Burrs Hill when they do the movie nights, or is it the Quahog Festival, I believe, which is in August. So I was hoping Warren would grant me that option.
All righty. Do we have any questions from the council to Ms. McMillan on her food truck? Assuming she's met all of the necessary Department of Health requirements.
I will make a motion. We approve the motor food establishment permit pending all state and local requirements be met.
Very well, thank you very much.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. And I did jump ahead. We need to go back and deal with the ordinances.
Kerry,
So-
you want to just do P4 next and wrap that whole section up?
We could do that. P4 is the one-day entertainment license from Alexandra Kutubi of 22 Michael Drive in Bristol, Rhode Island, 02809, for an event on June 5th of this year from 4 to 7 p.m. at Burrs Hill Park in Warren. I do have a question about this. There is, if we do grant the entertainment one-day event license, there's also the use of Burrs Hill Park to be discussed. And there is another event that's going on the waterfront on that same day, and I just want to make sure that we are all aware of that.
All right, and what is, Hi, I'm sorry, can we hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
we can hear you.
Yeah, so I spoke to Tara Thibodeau regarding, I know the beach is open that day. Is there another event besides the beach open that day?
I have on my calendar that from 9 to noon, there's a Learn to Row, the small boat day, which will be across the street on the water.
Okay.
However, your setup starts according to your application at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering if Ms. Thibodeau is on the line. What is the start date or of the parking in the down there at Burrs Hill Park? Will we be having the parking fees? And just note to all involved that, you know, parking will be limited down there.
Yes. If I don't know if Tara is on with us, but yes, we had discussed that the parking, there will be paid parking, and which I have noted in mine. And I don't know if I need to request with you, or I spoke to the police chief already regarding one-way parking on Water Street and having a police detail for that. But we did discuss, I have noted that it'll be limited parking directly at Burrs. I have notes for Franklin and Main Street parking.
I'm here now if you.
Oh,
Tara is here.
Yep.
Good evening.
Sorry. They just gave me access. So from, so there is the Learn to Row Day on that date, but they will be there early in the morning. This group is not coming in with parking until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The beach, I'm unsure of when the start date for the beach is going to be. It's going to be dependent on my lifeguards. That date still has not been established. We possibly could have the beach open, and it possibly could have the fees at that time. And I did let Alexa know, Alexandra know about that. So the spectators that parked in that parking lot would be under that, or we had to seek other alternatives for parking, such as Main Street or Franklin Street as a park and ride.
What time are the attendants there?
So they're looking to go in about, they're going to start, their student spectators arrive at 3 o'clock and they're done by 6:30.
So doesn't the parking lot not charge after 4?
After 5 on weekends,
Oh, 5.
we don't charge, but it shouldn't be too busy. June 5th is not going to necessarily be as busy as after the 4th of July.
Okay, Chief Borges is on the line and would like to speak.
Yes, Madam President, I just want to mention that we did speak with Alexandra about her event. It is going to start from 4 to 7. The agreement was to make Water Street a one-way for traffic. We'll have a detail officer there, make sure that traffic goes out to Bridge Street. There's no entertainment, no alcohol, but they will have a small concession stand. So,
very well, thank you. All right, so our first action is to hear if there is a motion to approve the one-day entertainment license.
I'll make a motion, we approve the one-day entertainment license for Alexander Katubi,
Alexandra,
Alexandra Katubi.
I'll second that.
you have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty, you have your entertainment license. And next, discussion and action regarding request for use of Burrs Hill Park from Dance Works. Alexandra Katubi on June 5th, 2021. And given the fact that we have granted you the entertainment permit for that event, I'm going to guess that there will be approval to use Burrs Hill Park.
I will make a motion to approve the use of Burrs Hill Park for Dance Works on June 5th, 2021.
Second.
All righty, we have a motion, we have a second, and Ms. Thibodeau, you are satisfied with the paperwork and everything is as you need?
Yes, yes, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Katubi.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. All righty, now we can jump back to page 2. And 01 is chapter 18, article 5, tree ordinance, section 18-101 through section 18-120. This is a first reading. We approved having a first reading last month and all hopefully took the time to review the language in red, the updates and changes to this.
This is the first reading, isn't it?
This is the first reading. So this is, and we really didn't discuss it at all last month. So in an effort to protect significant trees in Warren, we have this document. I would ask first, Mr. DeSisto, there you are. Is this the absolute maximum that can be done? Is there anything more in your legal opinion as an expert in this field that could be done to protect trees?
No, not private trees. You have a robust scheme for trees that are in public spaces, public trees, and that's appropriate. And then the question is what, if any, oversight can the town have over these so-called significant trees on private property? And this is as far as you can go because it's a voluntary program. In other words, the homeowner can say, I have a significant tree on my property and I would like to have it protected. And once that happens, there is a negative easement that would be recorded in town hall protecting the tree, unless the tree becomes infested with some type of a disease or becomes a public safety hazard, then it comes down. So this is a situation where it's not that the town is saying, look, this is a significant tree and we're going to protect it notwithstanding what the homeowner wants. This is a voluntary program where the homeowner is encouraged to preserve a significant trees defined by size, but also there is language in there, which I'm happy to see, that would allow certain varieties of trees because of the, like for instance, an American or Dutch elm to be protected because of its rare species or its role in the history of the forestry and silviculture of the northern United States.
Okay, and what page is the citing of the specific species that you just mentioned? Or is it in broader language? Because I see significant tree is 30 inches or greater in diameter, is measured 54 inches from ground level.
Well, of course, I'm stretching because I would have preferred to have it be by species as opposed to size. But I do note the language on page 1 after the size issue. And or because of its historical association, that it shall be deemed to be in the custody of that community and its official assigns. And I only say that because There are some, very few, by the way, but there are some trees in the town of Warren, elms, that managed to survive the pandemic, that killed off that very important tree, about 70 or 80 years ago. They're still around. They might not be 30 inches in diameter, but to me, certainly worthy of the designation if the homeowner sees fit. There's others too. The American chestnut, the linden.
And so the language in here, so should a property owner with a significant tree that qualifies designate it as such, or fill out, get the permit and do that, that protection or designation goes with the life of the tree. So if I were to designate 2 trees on my property as significant, and then I sell my home and move away, the next owner would be compelled to respect that?
That's correct, yes, because the designation and the easement that would be taken by the town on approval after the nomination would be recorded in the land evidence records. So any subsequent buyer would take a look at that, and that would be reported in the title report. So the subsequent buyer would be taking subject to notice that the tree is significant and can't be removed absent the reasons that I cited earlier.
But there's also language in here that says that if that new owner or the owner who does it, if they have a construction project that could only be achieved by removing that significant tree, they could get out of it.
With permission.
And that permission would come from the tree warden and the tree commission?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mr. Di Pasquale?
Mr. DeSisto, isn't it true that anyone could put a deed restriction on trees on their property without this?
They could, yes. Check that.
All right.
No.
No?
No.
So if you had your own property and you have a deed restriction on it and you sell that to someone and that deed is the deed to the property, those restrictions on that parcel don't hold up?
No, I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
It's the unity of title doctrine.
Oh.
In other words, you can't grant yourself an easement. So basically what you're saying is I'm restricting myself. What the property owner would have to do would be in connection with the sale of the house to say, look, I'm going to take an easement protecting this tree, okay? But if they do that, that would be what is known as an easement in gross, which only goes to the individual. It would not run with the land.
Oh.
So legally, this is about the only way that you can go to protect trees.
Interesting. Thank you. That was a question somebody had posed to me. And thanks.
Mr. Hanley?
Yeah, I like the definition of significant tree where it protects, where it makes it voluntary. But what I don't like is everywhere else in the document where significant tree, after being defined it, right after it says on private property. A, that's redundant, and B, that's extremely misleading. So if you just take out on private property after that, because the definition of significant tree covers it. I don't see why we have to have on private property every time we mention significant tree.
Okay.
That's the only issue I have with the document.
That can be done. That language is really a belt and suspenders approach.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll just take the suspenders off and keep the belt.
Yeah, because if somebody's just looking through it quick and they don't to go to back there, they're going to see on private property and say, wait a minute, I didn't volunteer, but I got a significant tree, It's just, I think it's misleading.
Could I
Yes, Mr. Hackert?
Thank you. Council President asked if this was all that could be done, the most that could be done. And Mr. DeSisto, you said, yes, it is. I'm wondering, and I think this has come up before, and I know it's been done in other communities, where someone who may not designate their own significant tree in their own yard still is required in some communities to apply for a permit. And that permit could be free, so there's no burden on the applicant. But the thinking behind this is that it gives the municipality a chance to go talk to this individual. And sometimes you can actually talk them out of cutting the tree down. So I'm trying to promote this as least burdensome as possible for the applicant, but it gives us another bite of the apple, so to speak. If the tree warden were to go over and discuss the concerns that the property owner had and why they wanted to take this tree down, and in many cases, they're afraid that it's going to fall on the house. And I think that many times that's not exactly right. So I'm just wondering if this could be introduced into this document as another opportunity to save a significant tree in our community.
You know, and I've got to tell you that Providence has I'll just give you one example. They have a much more robust program in dealing with how they define significant trees on private property. And it goes along with what you say, and I know there's other communities like that. My research indicates that ultimately that's unenforceable. And even the fact of just saying, you know, requiring a permit, even though there's no charge to it, there's an enforceability issue there when it comes to private property. And it actually touches on constitutional rights. So that's why I make the statement that I made. This isn't the first time that the town has actually taken a look at this type of a tree ordinance. It came up a few years ago, and I did some extensive research at that time. And it just, in my opinion, that ultimately those types of provisions are not enforceable. And that's where I'm coming from the legal standpoint, as opposed to more of a policy standpoint as you're putting forth.
So even though it seems to me, I've done some research that other communities do this, you're saying it's meaningless because it's unenforceable.
That's correct, yes. You can have it on the books, but you know, if somebody cuts down a tree and they didn't get a permit, there's really nothing you can do about that. I understand where you're coming from. That's a policy standpoint, but I just want to say that is not an enforceable, in my opinion, not an enforceable provision. And I've had discussions with other solicitors on this point, and that's a concern. And the other concern that I have on those things is, you know, somebody goes for a permit, it's denied, and the next thing you know, you got a lawsuit with the ACLU, and you lose the case, and you got to pay the legal fees. I worry about that stuff.
Understood. Sadly.
I know it's a tough situation, but you know, it touches on property rights.
Madam President, if I may, I see you nodding your head. Thanks. So, you know, I've read this ordinance and I look at it and I'm listening to our solicitor, and I'm just thinking that this could be a little bit of a slippery slope. And Tony, I'm wondering if we created something that kind of followed how an in-law apartment works, where you've got to get it, you got to get approval, but it doesn't transfer over with the sale of the property. That new property owner has to go through the process again, because I'm just wondering if that's a little restrictive and a little too much oversight, that if this is gonna follow the land use, that a new owner coming in may try to attack us in court to say, this is unconstitutional, you're stepping on my property rights before I even become the property owner. So I'm just wondering if we should follow the suit of the in-law apartment, how it's not transferable, but you have every right to come back before us and, you know, and we'll gladly grant it if you want to be in that significant tree voluntary category. So I was just wondering what your position, thoughts are on that.
Well, actually, on this one, one of the things that I thought was an improvement on the ordinance was the fact that this easement would be, and it's like a conservation easement that somebody bargains away for their property, that it would be recorded in the land evidence records. So the subsequent purchaser knows that there is a tree on the property that is protected and is buying subject to. And that's why I think that, there's protections there, and those protections would go to the town that would make it so that there would be no lawsuit based on property rights, because essentially they're taking subject to, and they knew it, but bought anyway.
Okay, so with easements that I'm very familiar with through my time in zoning, are we going to become the custodians for this tree now?
Yes.
As we would be with an easement? Yeah, so here's the problem now. Okay, so now we're gonna become the custodians for this tree. And we don't have the manpower to do the work that we have going on right now in the town with our public works.
What do you mean the custodian?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to say that it would not become a public tree that would have to be cared for by the town. When I say custodian, is that the ultimate protector of the tree would be the town, and that would be the tree warden and the tree commission.
So how do we?
They'd maintain a list of significant trees in town.
Sure. So how do we insulate ourselves from that new property owner saying, sure, no problem. I've got this tree, it's protected. You come maintain it for me then.
It's their tree.
It's not their tree if you're telling them you can't do anything with it.
Yes, it is. They bought the property knowing it up front. Just like if you bought property on the at the bottom of Church Street and there were deed restrictions on it when you bought the property.
Yeah, understandable though. But when you are using this word easement, if it's equivalent to an easement, the municipalities maintain those easements. If it's
okay,
or the utility companies maintain those easements.
But it's not an easement. It's
hold on.
This is Tony's word.
Hold on.
Okay.
It's a negative easement.
Okay.
It tells somebody what they can't do. And basically what there's a negative easement, just like when you take a property and take the conservation property, when you take the development rights.
Yes.
That's not something that the town has to take care of. You have properties in this town that are farms. And you basically said to the owners, go ahead, keep farming. You can't develop it.
Okay.
So you've taken away a part of their rights. But at the same token, that doesn't mean that you have to go on and do the farming for them. You've basically said you have your property, but you've given us a part of it and you can't do what you ordinarily would do if you had full title to the property. So in this instance, basically what you're saying to the property owner is, hey, it's your tree, but you can't cut it down unless it's diseased or the other factors that the council president put up. So it's not that it imposes a burden on the town to maintain the tree. Basically what it says is it's your tree, but there's just some things that you can't do with it.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay.
It's a negative easement.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion, we pass it to second reading with the changes I suggested of taking that redundancy out of the, every time it says significant tree to say on private property. I don't think that's needed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Well done. Next, chapter 02 or ordinance 02, chapter 7, amendment to article 4, section 7-132, SEC, Affordable Housing Trust Fund, first reading. I will let Planner Rulli take over from here and talk about this document.
Thank you, Madam President. There is one correction that I need to make before the second reading. I made reference that we did not have an adopted affordable housing plan. That's incorrect. We do have one that was adopted in 2004. Interestingly enough, the number of units that we had in 2004 is only slightly lower than what we have today. And so we've made, I mean, my position that we're not being successful meeting the goal stands, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear that we do have a plan, and I will correct that language. As we discussed previously, we need to do more to create workforce housing. I initially thought of changing the language in the ordinance to workforce housing, but that doesn't track with any of the HUD regulations or any of the federal and state funding. So I think by reference, there's opportunities to say workforce housing, but I think more importantly is educating people that affordable housing is more than just Section 8 vouchers. That it is, when you look at what the income limits that are available or allowable by Rhode Island Housing, it just doesn't jive with what people really can afford. So I think this is an opportunity to distinguish the town and take a more proactive approach to affordable housing. And one of the things that I'm suggesting in here is that as part of the rezoning of the Metacom corridor, where if the design guidelines were adopted and we allowed more density for housing, that if a developer wanted to include workforce housing, they would get additional density. If they didn't, that we would come up with a formula that they would make a contribution to an affordable housing trust fund that we could use as a loan program, not a grant program. Happy to answer any other questions that members might have. The planning board is supportive of this. They had input into the draft. And I will tell you that the request that we put in through Congressman Cicilline's office for the federal appropriation is not going to make it, but Congressman Cicilline's office expressed support for what we were doing, and they were encouraged by the position that we took. So we will continue to raise this issue. That's all that I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll put this out to the council. Councilman Heckert.
Thank you. Reading through this is a pretty substantial undertaking. I'm just wondering, Bob, what kind of help the Board of Trustees is going to need to fulfill their obligation. When you read through the duties of this board, I mean, they're pretty substantial as far as record keeping and reporting, and so I just. Yeah,
I mean, we have those same requirements now for CDBG funding. So I mean, I think we have a template in place in terms of how to do that. Initially, I don't think that there's going to. This is really just starting from the ground up, so it's going to take some time to get some funds into this account and to have something substantial enough that we can start to put money out for development. So I'm hopeful that we can refine our methods as we go forward, but I don't see it to be that overwhelming.
That's good, with your guidance.
Well, and Mr. DeSisto would say the Traffic Advisory Committee too.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I had on that. Just thank you.
I will make a motion. We pass the amendment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the second reading.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 He showed has a question.
Yeah, I just have one question and apologies for not raising it sooner. Just one of the amendments that's proposed is to change the award of funds to state that the trust fund resources may just be distributed as loans instead of grants and or loans. And I'd like to request that we put back in the grants and or loans. Just because I think that flexibility would be important. If the trust fund was awarded the funds to provide grants, then I don't think we should foreclose on that potential.
So Kate, this would allow us to do both loans and grants? Yeah,
Correct.
I'll amend my motion to include the changes recommended by the town manager.
What page is that on? Or where is that?
On the 5th page, the top of the page says eligible applicants. It's C, award of funds.
Okay, so distributed, trust fund resources may be distributed as grants and or loans. So just remove that mark through it.
That would be I understand that the intention is to provide loans, but things could change, and I think that it'd be the flexibility. That's just my opinion.
I agree with the manager. I mean, if there was somebody that was funding the loan or grant fund that specifically wanted it to be a grant, not a loan, we want to honor that.
Okay.
I think that probably it makes good sense. All righty. So as amended, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Rulli.
Thank you.
And next, 03, Chapter 4, Article 2, Building Code, Section 4-26 through Section 4-68. This is the second reading. This we have to do. There's not a lot of debate on most of this. It was pointed out that there was a little typo that was probably copied and pasted from the statewide or possibly federal paperwork. So on page 3 and on page 6 in the boxes, the third line down, 130 plus $11 per 1,000, exceeding not 1,000, but exceeding 10,000 should be corrected. It is correct on the final citing of that information on page 9. Are there any questions, comments on this document?
I believe that's the only change from what we had last month, correct? Yeah, I'll make a motion. We pass the second reading with the changes that were just mentioned by the council president.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Well, that
And
was
just to clarify, that will take effect on July 1st.
Okay.
July 1. Can I just ask, are you hearing the feedback when I am not muted as we have in the past?
Yes.
I didn't hear any.
Yes.
Okay, so I will, as I speak now, I will mute myself when I'm not. So next we have correspondence. There are 10 items. Is there anything here that anybody from the council would like to pull for discussion or for any other reason? Mr. Hecker?
I'd like to pull C10, the letter from Jane McDougal regarding parking issues on Hale Street.
Alrighty, I think that you've beat me to that. I was going to suggest that as well and refer it to the future traffic and parking advisory group that is
Traffic management study group.
Traffic management study group. Thank you. That's not what I meant.
Parking management study group. I'm sorry.
Right. So if everybody has read the letter from Ms. McDougal and the attached document signed by the neighbors, making requests and whatnot. I think there's some reasonable information in there. And then I think there's some, I wouldn't say misinformation because I don't think it was intended to be wrong, but the overflow of parking happens after the parking lot has filled up. And it does in fact go out into that neighborhood. But with this new study group, I think referring to this letter and the concerns of that part of the neighborhood will be valuable.
Thank you. That was my concern, that we address it on some level. So, thank you.
Consider it done. So can we officially just refer this to this new group? Well, we have. Thank you. Next, we have old business, OB1, discussion and action regarding the extension and/or amendment of the town's limited declaration of state of emergency. So last month, we created a limited declaration to protect our eating establishments in town so that they continue to have the outdoor dining, whether they have the zoning for it or not. And I think that was a good thing to do. There is legislation that's being considered that may impact this. I don't know if Mr. DeSisto wants to just give the council a brief update on that.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The legislation that I referred to last month actually passed out of the House Municipal Committee last night, but in an amended form, very broad, by the way, and basically allows for a moratorium, actually not allows, but authorizes a moratorium on any municipal regulations for establishments that have undertaken COVID-related improvements. That includes zoning and any other regulation that the town may have in its ordinances or even other types of regulations. Now, I expect the bill to be voted on in the House floor next week. A similar bill in the Senate was heard and held. So I don't expect action on that bill until later on in the month of June, and then it has to go to the governor. It's a very wide-ranging bill and actually handicaps the ability of a town to have any regulation and oversight over these types of businesses. That said, this particular resolution that you passed last month is just focused on allowing the businesses to operate as they did last year under the same manner. I'd recommend that you keep it in place because this legislation hasn't passed yet, and it will allow for some continuity as the weather gets warmer.
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. DePasquale.
So Mr. DeSisto, if someone is using their parking lot or even public property for the tables for outside service, are you suggesting that they would be able to continue that use even though it goes against our local zoning?
Under the bill as proposed, and I'm sorry, I actually don't have it in front of me right now, but it would continue on through the rest of the year. And basically, if there were improvements done because of the pandemic, then the town would have no oversight over that at all. One of the concerns that I would have with the bill is related to noise, and that would be a major issue. You couldn't enforce your noise ordinance or your entertainment restrictions. Just couldn't do it. What you have now, however, is town oversight over these outdoor arrangements for the restaurants. And what you have before you would continue that. If the legislation passes between now and next month, I'm going to tell you you might as well not continue it because you don't have any control anyway.
So my follow-up to that answer is some restaurateurs have asked me if they would be able to get permission, and when would that time be to utilize and continue to use the door arrangements that they have because they've proven to be so successful?
Well, while the emergency period is ongoing, which it is now, they would do it in the same manner that they did last year. Once the emergency is over, then what happens is they'd have to go and get their necessary permits. If it's additional seating, that would be to the zoning board. And whatever else they want to do, they'd go to the, to the relevant official.
And one last follow-up directly related to the answers. So if somebody had, say, tables that were allowed, they would then have to go through the process of asking for a variance to the existing code?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
And to go to parking, because if it's in the parking lot, that affects, the capacity. And also, for your liquor licenses and things like that.
Mr. Hackart?
Thank you. As much as we want to support our businesses and allow them to modify their service and seating to take every advantage they need to take, I have some concern about public safety when it comes to the way that some of these tables are being placed on sidewalks to the point where the public has to step into the street to pass by. And I know when we passed our whole outdoor seating ordinance a couple of years ago now, we focused pretty heavily on the safety of the public passing by these tables, and we put into that ordinance exactly how far the table could stick out and what the spacing was so that some pedestrian could pass by that table and stay on the sidewalk. So I've seen situations in town where, yeah, the sidewalks are completely taken up by tables, and the sidewalk is impassable. So I just want to mention that because it seems like we could be liable essentially if we allow that to continue. That's my concern.
That's correct. The town currently, even if you pass this tonight, would have oversight over that. However, I got to tell you, if that bill passes in the legislature and the governor signs it, you wouldn't have any control over that.
Tony, would that state act preempt any federal ADA regulations?
You could proceed under ADA, but that's not something we could do under the bill. So there could be enforcement, just not from the town. That's how broad the bill is. You probably, if you have concerns about that, you probably want to contact your legislative delegation about this bill. It's very broad, very broad.
All right, well, I think it would be a good thing for the manager to reach out to our state delegation and let them know how we feel about this.
Madam President, if I may, just for a real quick moment, in the interest of fairness, and Brant, I hear you loud and clear, but I am frequently in the downtown area, in the restaurants, walking the sidewalks. And in the interest of fairness, I do see some congestion, but I don't think it's absolutely an atrocity where folks are being forced out into the streets. I'm a pretty good sized guy and I'm able to manage myself, and at times walking my very large dog and get by the sidewalks where these tables are. So I think as a council, we should be doing everything in our power to make sure that these establishments can stay functioning, stay operating, and stay solvent, because they have not only taken it on the chin for over a year now, then they can't find help to keep themselves running. So, in the interest of fairness, I just want to say that I am able to travel freely around these outdoor establishments, and they're all doing a fabulous job. So thank you, Madam President. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Hecker?
Steve, I completely understand what you're saying, and that's why when I stated this, I started off by saying we as a town want to do everything we can to support these businesses, but we also have a responsibility to the public and to public safety. And if we get into a situation where someone was hurt, they stepped off the sidewalk, and God forbid something happened, we're responsible. So I think what it comes down to, Steve, is a balance. That would be my approach, a balance there where, yes, you allow tables on the sidewalks, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there needs to be oversight for safety reasons. That's my decision.
Under what this resolution that you're considering now, there would be that oversight. And so if there are complaints, the town can follow up on them, because public safety is a consideration on that, particularly under the governor's executive orders that this is in support, this follows from, I should say. So that is something the town can follow up on now, even as these establishments are allowed to undertake these modifications based on the restrictions that are still in place. But that said, would it be helpful to the council members if we actually sent you a copy of the legislation? Because it bears directly on what Councilman Heckert is discussing. It bears directly on that. And perhaps it'd be good if you could take a look at what the legislation is.
That would be appreciated, yes. There are, not to belabor it, but there are comments in the chat box I'm not exactly sure who the person is, and they recognize a particular business in town where they have observed blocking of the sidewalk. So I don't think we need to debate whether it's happening or not. With the relaxed restrictions of, due to COVID, a lot of businesses have taken advantage of the opportunity to put seating outside, and it's wonderful and it's great. But if public safety is an issue, I would recommend including in our limited declaration the expectation that there would be periodic check-ins by our safety, our police and fire, just noting when it's getting out of control, or when there's possible unsafe conditions happening. And I think any of our businesses, any of our restaurants would take that friendly pointing out that the situation was unsafe, and be very appreciative and want to protect their customers as well. I don't believe that any of our restaurants who are serving outdoors want to put their customers in jeopardy. And it's easy, people get relaxed, they scooch out, they lean back and whatnot. It happens. It does. I don't think we need to debate that. So as long as we can ensure public safety, I don't imagine that any of our business owners or restaurant owners are going to feel attacked or unfairly warned if there is a safety concern that is obvious and pointed out by a member of our fire or police department. I don't see it.
I suggest that when we approved expansion of businesses to expand last year, the fire chief, police chief, and myself reviewed those plans, and those plans were kept with the town clerk as part of their licensing. So I think it's fair for us to go back and revisit what we approved to make sure there's compliance with what was approved. And if they're not in compliance, that we point out that they're not and correct it. I mean, it's not overwhelming the number that we did. So, I mean, I think we could go through it pretty quickly.
If I could, One thing I noticed, Brent, not to disagree with a table, say in the middle of the edge of a sidewalk, but the one thing I have noticed spending a lot of time outside this year, some people choose to actually walk so far away from you that they go in the street. And I've witnessed that our sidewalks do not allow the 6 feet on the width. On distance, they do. And, most people are all masked and all, but I have noticed people who sometimes don't even look. And on Water Street, they'll step right in the road to walk around you. So I think that may have a little bit to do as well. I'm not criticizing or speaking against specific areas that may be a table that's an obstruction. But even then, I've noticed myself people who walk well around in an extremely exaggerated fashion to get nowhere near you. So I think there's maybe a little bit of that could be happening as well, because I've witnessed it from people just getting around me and I'm sitting on a bench.
Sure. So noted. Yeah.
All right, so as Mr. Rulli suggests, a review of the plans that were submitted at the beginning would be helpful. And if Mr. DeSisto would share to the council this proposed legislation, and if we can reach out to our statewide delegation and let them know that we're concerned at the broad nature of this legislation and what it might do to safety and just our ability to regulate how things go in town, that it's an overreach. In the meantime, do we want to extend on a limited basis, as we did last month, this declaration of emergency? And give ourselves the best ability to support our local businesses and keep everybody safe for until the next council meeting, or until something else gets passed at the state level.
I will make a motion, we extend the limited state of emergency that was in place till the next council meeting, and also that we direct the town manager to have the police, fire, and planning director review the plans and take a look for compliance.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. All right. OB2, discussion and action regarding policy for board and commissions. At our last meeting, we directed the town manager to develop some more clearly defined policies and procedures as far as the expectations for members of boards and commissions. I think that if we all have a document here, which is pretty clear and technical, there's apparently a welcome packet, or there's more information that gets shared to all newly appointed members of boards and commissions. I would personally like to see that, and maybe extend to the next meeting a review of that, and maybe give some notes and comments if that needs to be amended, updated, improved in any way. But there's a lot of useful information here, as well as some more suggestions highlighted in yellow. Is there any discussion from the council on any aspects of this? Mr. Hecker.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a comprehensive document that we have in front of us, and I think it's very good. But as you just mentioned, I think there are a couple of things we can do to help applicants and new board members. And one of them, and I've done some research into what other towns do, and is when someone files an application for a board, they are sent sort of a list of the responsibilities and duties of a board member, and could be specific to that board. And I think that would be very helpful because I think many times applicants just really have no idea even when the meetings are, how long the meetings are, what, just that kind of information. And we end up asking them questions and it's embarrassing for them sometimes. And I think it would be helpful to give applicants that kind of information in a very short form that's very, very easy to read. I mean, this document that we have is very comprehensive, but it's a little legalese. And then, as you mentioned, once they are appointed, we could send them, welcome on board and give them further information about what the job and duty is as a member of that board. So I would be advocating for that information. And again, it could be pretty simple and straightforward, as I've seen from other communities, but I think it would help immensely with some of the issues that we've had with people not really understanding what they're getting into and what their responsibilities are. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this document?
Madam President, I just have a really quick question here.
Yep.
I noticed it has everything listed, boards and commissions, and, our JFC is 2 members from council, and then we have a member from the public. Tony, would the JFC should be included on this document?
No, in my opinion, the JFC is a part of the Bristol Warren Regional School District. And because, that's issue number one. Issue number two is the majority of the members of that are from the other community. So
Okay.
this is not something that should go on.
I just noticed that it was omitted alphabetically, so I'm like, oh, just to make sure for thoroughness. Thank you. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah. So the first, under organization, the list that Councilman Kalenda was just referring to is alphabetical, and it has some specifics in parentheses about the number of people on each board and terms and whatnot. Some information is included on some. Ms. Michaud, did you say that you just copied and pasted this from what was existed already? And you did not add or subtract anything from this, or you made corrections? There's just some of these, for example, Juvenile Hearing Board, 5 members plus 2 alternates, 3-year terms, must be a resident, may not be an elected official. Well, so that would make it seem that maybe somebody on the Arts and Cultural Committee that has 8 members, 1-year term, no resident requirement, standing ad hoc, that maybe a member of the council could be on that committee. So would this maybe be better organized if some of those specifications were, or those specifications were included on every single one, or not on any? Maybe just up at the top, no member unless otherwise stated can be an elected official.
I copied the information directly out of the charter. So, or whatever the organizing document is for that committee. So I didn't want to add any requirements or modify any requirements from what was stated already.
So I would say for then that, maybe instead of having the elected part sort of stands out in my mind, as does the residency requirement. So, maybe rather than having it in there, just have a comment at the top that says, no elected officials may serve on any board or commission, and all boards and commissions, there is a residency requirement on all boards and commission unless otherwise stated or noted.
I'm not sure that's true. You could be a member of the school committee and you could be on the Fire Board of Engineers, or you could be on the honor roll committee. That I think it's specific to that board.
But that's why I said unless otherwise noted. because it's not noted on the Conservation Commission, but it is on the Parks and Recreation Board. So we could just make it that much more clear by saying no elected officials may serve on any boards or commissions unless otherwise noted.
But isn't that what it says when you look at the list? It's noted.
No, it's not.
But
It's
it
noted
says
in
like-
certain places, but not in other places.
I'm confused by your clarity. I don't understand what you're trying to say to make it clearer. Because where you can be, it says it, and where you can't be, it says it. So I don't understand.
Well, it start at the top. The American Indian Ad Hoc Study Committee, 9 members, no resident requirement. So that's clear. See September 8, 2020 council minutes for membership preferences, ad hoc committee. So that actually does allow for 1 member of the council to be a member. So that would be otherwise noted on there. The arts and culture.
Non-voting, and it's not in the charter. I don't.
If I didn't know what I know as far as, you know, how these are organized and whatnot, I would be confused. I don't think that the information that is listed here is consistent and clear as it could be. If you think otherwise, that's fine, but
I don't know what I'm thinking because I don't understand what you're saying. This language, if Ms. Mishu took this out of the charter, it means that in the charter where these are described or discussed, this is the language. So what you're saying is for this document, you would want clarity.
yes, and because we are in the charter review process, maybe this signifies that some language clarity needs to happen in the charter as well, which has been communicated to that group already, that there are instances in the charter that exist right now where there are just clerical and editorial tweaks that need to be made. So I would like this to be as clear as is possible if we're going to go through the process.
So is what I'm hearing is you're saying that this would be up to the Charter Commission to make the recommendations to the council, and then when the council takes a look at the Charter Commission's recommendations, we would then, I'm confused because it seems like what you're, I don't know if what you're talking about is charter review process or the boards and commission policy.
Well, what I'm saying is that if we go by group and we agree what information should be attached to that group, then we can share our information to the Charter Review Committee, and they can plug it in.
Can we continue this to next month? And whoever has some suggestions can present them so we all know what we're talking about?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
All right, I'll make a motion. We continue OB2 to next month's meeting.
All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. There we go. OB3, discussion and action regarding contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery for solid waste recycling and yard waste disposal. So I will let Manager Michaud take this one and explain.
So what I would request is that we discuss OB3 and OB4. We can combine discussion of these 2 items. One of them will be significantly easier to approach than the other. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if anyone else can. Okay.
A lot of feedback.
That sounds better. So just to take it in order, the first item being the discussion action regarding the contract for Rhode Island Resource Recovery. You have the documents in your packet. They've been reviewed by Attorney DeSisto. The bottom line on this is that we have no alternative. State law requires us to dispose of our waste and recyclables at the central landfill in Johnston, and this is the contract that they've presented. So I do recommend approval of the contract just because we have no alternative. To me, the most important aspect of that contract is the increase in fees that we're going to see over the next 2 years. So in the memo that I included in the council packet, I broke down the rates. I included fiscal year 2021, even though that's not included in the contract because it's the current fiscal year, but just for context. So the existing rate that we pay for waste is $47 per ton. The over the cap rate is $80 per ton. Currently, for the last fiscal year that we have complete data, which is fiscal year 2020, we had 4,141 tons of solid waste, which includes 3,144 tons at the base rate and 997 tons at the over the cap rate. I can tell you for our current fiscal year, I presented the data last month on the calendar year data. We are definitely trending upwards on solid waste. I believe our solid waste is up around 4.5% tonnage wise for the current fiscal year. That's what we're projecting through the end of the year. So it's an increase where we would like to see a decrease. And unfortunately, that's going to lead to increased costs over the next 2 years, even more than maybe we anticipated. For fiscal year 2022, they're keeping the base rate level at $47 a ton, but they're increasing the over the cap rate by 12.5%. So that goes from $80 per ton to $90 per ton. And then when you get into fiscal year 23, the base rate increases by 14.9%, which would go to $54 per ton. And then the over the cap rate increases by another 11% to $100 per ton. So as you'll see, it's a significant increase in fees that would be charged for tipping fees. And obviously this is in addition to the cost that we encounter for handling and the hauling from curbside, the handling at the transfer station, and then the hauling to Johnston. So I think it's time to look at maybe some tough decisions and some tough choices to try to contain these costs. It's not possible for us to absorb just the 14.9% increase in the base rate in fiscal year 2023. When you couple that with the increased tonnage that we're experiencing, just that alone, even if we could eliminate the over the cap, just that alone is going to bust our budget. So last year I had done a survey of all the cities and towns, or all the comparable cities and towns. I did not look at some of the larger cities to see what they do as far as fees and policies at the transfer stations. We had looked especially at bulky disposals last year, and we have adjusted our fee schedule accordingly for things like couches and large appliances. At that time, we did retain the $800 pounds of solid waste that can be disposed of at the transfer station at no cost. But at the time I did note, and it's still the case, that we are the only municipality that I could find in the state of Rhode Island that has a policy like this. There is no other municipality that allows for free disposal of solid waste at the transfer station. Many municipalities allow for free curbside, as we do, although many do not as well. Many towns have gone to a pay-as-you-throw program. I could not find any that allow for any free dumping at all at the transfer station. So while I know that it will not be a popular option, and I know that there will be pushback from residents, my recommendation is, as of July 1st, to eliminate the free 800 pounds at the transfer station. Residents would still get their 95 gallons a week curbside in the bins, but anyone who brings excess solid waste to the transfer station, my recommendation would be that they would have to pay the per ton rate that is established for disposal of solid waste. In order to encourage more composting and yard waste, we have heard feedback on limitations on the composting and the yard waste disposal. So I'd recommend increasing that by 200 pounds for the yard waste so that residents could dispose of 1,000 pounds of yard waste at no cost at the transfer station. In addition to the unlimited curbside disposal of yard waste, we will pick up as much yard waste as people put curbside. We'll continue to do that. And then obviously recyclables, we'll pick up bi-weekly as we do now, but also disposal of recyclables would be free at the transfer station. So if anyone has excess recyclables and they'd like to bring them to the transfer station, there would be no charge for that.
I have
So,
a question.
yep.
Is it possible for a Band-Aid, only a Band-Aid financially or economically, since we know that we have had an increase in this past year, could we look at that federal funding for the COVID relief and possibly say that people were home and due to the fact this increase could maybe get some money?
That is something that Ms. Chan has mentioned, and actually we got the guidance yesterday on the American Rescue Plan. It's a 151-page document. I'm on page 78. So I would like to obviously discuss that further with the council.
So it's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
It's just a Band-Aid, I understand. The hard decisions are still ahead.
Right. And next year, obviously, there's a fiscal impact to the increase in the over the cap rate, but we really need to prepare ourselves for fiscal year 2023 when we get hit on both the over the cap rate and the under the cap rate.
One follow-up, if I could. I think we need to do an educational mailing immediately, starting to either in tax bills or even certified. Maybe not certified, but we need to get this. We need to physically, the town of Warren needs to start sending out the mandates from the state, what we're dealing with, because all I ever get from people is the criticism of they pay their taxes and we're taking away access to the dump. Warren has had a very interesting love affair with the dump. A lot of people, set their weekends based upon that morning trip to the dump. It's a ritual, but it's a ritual that has now become expensive, and people need to understand that this isn't about us changing something that we can afford. It is directly affecting their taxes, whether they pay their property taxes or they pay at the dump. The user fee is still remaining. So the free aspect isn't free. We're paying for that, and they're paying for it in their taxes. So it's I really do think we need an educational component to start this, because those 800 people who buy the stickers, they're going to be loud, and they're going to, as some of you have already heard, any change on this. That's my 2 cents.
I would tend to agree with Joe. Yeah, I think educational component here is really necessary, because those people that take advantage of the free dumping out there, and again, the costs are passed on to the entire municipality, and it's a fairness doctrine in a sense. So I think the more information we can get out there, and the faster, the better we will be at handling some of these complaints.
But even to just expand, no one understands that I talk to that complain about trash. They don't understand the component about the state. They really think that like it goes to the town, and then it just, whatever we do. So many people don't even know that the tonnage, the charges, the tip fees, all of that aspect of this, they look at me like I'm, just typical. You're just full of hot air. It's going to close in 2038, and we still don't know what we're going to do. So I think we need to spend money. I think we unfortunately need to budget money on this message, because when this happens, it's going to be a reality, because you're going to be dealing with your budget. It's not going to be about removing, leave waste or this and that. It's numbers that are impacting every other thing that you value in town. So trash can't, we need to get the message out so it's on the record. Thank you.
I agree that whatever we can share information wise and education wise is really critical to this moving forward without, people just losing their mind and blowing up. So a press release, an article of the paper, and then direct outreach to the community is really important. Can you talk about your request in here to establish or reestablish the enterprise fund at the dump? Talk about that.
Sure. So I'm not quite prepared to recommend that we reestablish the enterprise fund. What I'd like is the council's permission to explore the potential. The transfer station was set up as an enterprise fund at one point, an enterprise fund meaning that it's self-supporting. So the expenses associated with the transfer station are supported by the fees collected by the transfer station. I don't know that it would work now, but I think that we have to explore all options, especially since it's going to, the alternative is to go back at the taxpayer. So if there's an alternative to baking this into the tax rate, then I think we need to at least explore it. It may not work out, but I just want to raise it as a possibility that I think that we should vet and either determine that it's worth pursuing or rule it out, based on the facts.
Well, Madam President, may I jump in just for a quick sec?
You may.
Hey, Kate, if you could please, not to throw anything else on your plate, but could you try to come up with a phase out plan instead of just eliminating it this July, maybe phasing it out in over the next 2 years or 3 years, whatever you think you can come up with? Because we already went from 1,000 to, well, I think at one time it used to be a ton.
It
Now
was
we're at a ton. And yeah, so it was a ton. We went to a half ton. Now we're at 800 pounds because I think we allowed some yard waste. Maybe just phasing it out until it eliminates itself, and maybe that'll be less of a public outcry, because I know Joe was saying, getting this message out there. Oh, folks, the message is already out there. Our phones are going to start blowing up when people have to deal with, what do you mean I'm not going to get my free 800 pounds anymore? So maybe phasing it out could be a possibility.
If that's the route that the town council wants to take, then, just let me know what you think would be the appropriate amount of time to phase it out. My concern is just that the financial impacts are going to be, as of July 1st, when we hit that increase in the over the cap, we're going to have immediate issues.
Just weighing out the options, we're just going to have to weigh out the options, and then make a decision.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Yeah.
Because I want clarity to what I was saying, so everybody on the record knows where I'm coming from. Mr. Clenda, my reasoning for the direct public outreach to the tax bill wasn't so much focused on the removal of the free. It was more in regards to the direct mandates set by the state. The game of trash is changing. That's the message that I'm more focused on getting to people, because I feel the decisions we're making, it's not really, when I vote on these things, I'm not using my own intelligence, or not intelligence, but my own, we're following rules that are increasing. The cost is not based on us anymore. And even when we used to try the enterprise zone, I have no problem with you looking at that. But one of the main reasons for getting rid of it was when we accepted trash from everybody, it cost us more money to haul it, deal with it, than we were making. So, I have no problem taking a look at it. I really don't want it to consume too much of the manager's time, because these numbers, as she's stating, these are coming from the state. That's my biggest message, is that when we're telling people there's going to be a gray bin that we're delivering, and that's going to be for soil pizza boxes and oils, and then there's going to be a brown bin, and that's going to be for food compost waste, whether they like it or not. Go to Austin, go to other places. The highest peak in many states is the landfill, and that's Rhode Island. So the sad reality is it's changing, and we don't even have much say. That's the message I want to get out, not as a scapegoat to us because of our responsibility, because we don't have any say on these changes that are coming down. That's what I want people to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hanley?
Yeah, if Joe's right and there's 800 people that get stickers, we're only talking about 40 grand a year. Is that something we would want to take away? Is that worth taking away to our residents? Because even the over the cap is $80 this year, $90 next year, and 100 after that. We're not even giving them a half a ton. So even if we go to the higher rate, we're giving them less than a half a ton, call it 50 bucks. That's 40 grand for the free dump. Is that a big enough ticket to pull this away than find somewhere else to balance it? It's not that, it is 40 grand is 40 grand, but it's not that big of a number. It sounds like, we're not going to be saving hundreds of $1,000s by taking away the free dump. We're going to save about 40 grand. Is that something we want to provide to our residents at that cost? Is my math kind of correct, Kate?
Yeah, no, I think last year we were closer to 1,000 sticker holders. But
Okay.
we also, the stickers are dual stickers for the beach and the landfill now. So it's hard to tell, who's buying it for the beach and who's buying it for the transfer station.
So even at 1,000 in 3 years, it's only 50 grand. If we give them 800, if we gave them a full half a ton. It's not that, everybody's talking about it like it's this huge amount. It's really not.
No, but the state numbers that are coming down the pipe are.
Joe, I'm looking at the paperwork, which runs it out for the next 3 years, what we're going to be paying a ton. And the highest one is $100. We're not even giving them a half a ton.
No, I'm not talking about the residents. I'm talking about the trash disposal impact on the entire town.
Right, but that's what I'm looking at, Joe, the over the cap rate. The over the cap rate in fiscal year 2023 is $100 a ton. So even if you say, let's say we're giving them a half a ton free, that's 50 bucks.
But it says 997 tons are over the cap.
Joe, I'm looking at the over the cap rate. Okay, it's $100 a ton if we go over the cap. So if we go over the cap and we go with the highest rate and they each get 800 pounds, even in the highest year, it's only costing us 50 grand to give our residents a place to go to the dump.
I don't disagree with your math because I'm not doing the math right now, so I don't have it in front of me the way you're looking at it. I'm talking about trash as we know it in the town, in the budget. Not necessarily, that's why I wanted to emphasize it's not necessarily in my position, isn't necessarily focused on the sticker and the ton.
Right, it's definitely something we have to address, but I think by cutting out the free dump, we're just taking a little nibble. We're not taking a big bite. Is that something is it worth $50,000 to the town to give their residents someplace to go on a Saturday and get rid of an old chair that was in the living room that they never sit in?
Well, the bulky things they do, those are not free. Those
Right,
have
but,
costs attached to them. I understand what you're saying. However, we are offering a service and to our residents, or we have one that nobody else is offering. So the notion that this isn't going to make a huge impact, I'm not sure if I fully understand your math. You're saying it and it's making sense, and yet it's not. But I know that Mr. Malik is on the line and would like to speak, so I would open the floor to him right now. Unmute yourself if that's you, Jan.
He needs to unmute himself. or we can promote him to a panelist.
I will do that.
Jan, you're
Am I
muted.
unmuted? No,
There you
I'm
go.
unmuted. I hope.
There
The
you
lady
go.
on the phone keeps on telling me I'm unmuted, so I feel I'm unmuted. Hey, just a few things, John. I'm listening to what's going on here. Remember one thing, it's not just the cost of dumping, it's also the cost of fuel, driving the trucks, the maintenance of the trucks, how many times we got to go up to the landfill. So you have to include that price into this operation here, number one. Number two, what I'm hearing here is, to be fair, there's 800 to 1,000 people that are buying stickers. There's a lot of people in this community that don't buy stickers, and they're basically honoring what you people started a year ago with these bins out that we started with Mega. So everybody's on the same playing field here. Everybody, either you put your trash in that black bin, or you call the highway department and have your bulky stuff picked up by us, with the cost, or you can charge people now. I mean, there's many people in this community that don't use that transfer station. Why are they being subsidized to these other people that are getting their free dump day? I just can't understand that why, remember, I was a politician one time. We always care about people that complain, but when you take stuff away, those are the people that are going to complain to you council people. That's all. The other people, the silent majority, you're going to be helping them out. So that's all I have to say with this matter. And I support Kate's proposal here, to be honest with you.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Appreciate your perspective, and that true words, in that those who have been using the service and the luxury and going there and buying the stickers don't really represent the entire majority of the community, not by a long shot. So I would hear any last comments, and then I think we have some decisions to make. For one.
Yeah, Madam President, if I may just follow up something with our manager. So Kate, break it down kind of like the Reader's Digest version. If you're saying we eliminate the transfer station stickers, we're going to save how much money in our tipping fees? Do we have that number?
So I'm not proposing that you eliminate the transfer station stickers, and you would still offer the residents an opportunity to bring waste to the transfer station. There would just be a charge per ton for that disposal.
Okay, so what John is explaining, that if I have a sticker, I've had a sticker, since stickers came out for the transfer station. So me and my 1,000 people out there, we get our free 800 pounds. And if we were paying for it, it would cost us $50. Okay, which is $40,000. So a transfer sticker station ticket costs $20, right?
Correct.
So we generated $20,000 worth of revenue from, and then we hear our public works saying, you've got to figure in the fees and the transportation costs and the vehicle costs. Well, those vehicles are running there anyways. So if you're going to tell me that those vehicles are going to make 2 trips less a month or 2 trips less a week, then yes, I'm an informed individual sitting on council, and I can make an informed decision. But just to throw out things where there's transportation cost involved and there's fuel cost involved, then I need to see that data, because those trucks are going there regardless if I'm dumping my trash at the transfer station or not. So if we're going to eliminate potentially $40,000 worth of waste, then tell me what the transportation costs are going to break down to. Because otherwise, I think it's like we're making a lot of discussion over something that's insignificant. Now, Joe, you're 100% right. The waste removal it's a game changer. It is a game changer. So I think the more information we have, the better informed we'll be, and then we can make our actual decision based on all the information.
Yeah, I would like to see an actual number for somebody show me if we eliminate these stickers, this is how much we are going to save at the transfer station. That's what I would like to see before I voted on that.
I mean, I tell you what, we could increase the number of the sticker then, the sticker price to cover the cost, you know?
But until we know how much it costs for the dump, for those stickers, it's hard to make that decision. So, yeah.
I know of some communities that have gotten rid of the curbside and you are required to bring your trash to the transfer station. I was surprised. I stayed, it was someplace in Cape Cod, and you had to drive, to these big dumpsters that were in town outside.
Yeah, the communities in New Hampshire do the same thing. I mean, Portsmouth's been doing it for years. It kind of basically comes down to what's a fit for that community as opposed to what fits for our community. But again, Kate, you know, I don't mean to put any more work on your plate. And since we've had some pretty good discussion on this, if you need a little assistance, just send me an email or text me and I'll do what I can to help do some research for you. But that's all I have, Madam President. Thank you.
All right, so I think that the general consensus is that we would like a little bit more information before we make the big decision on the either removal of the $800 or 800 pounds and the sticker and all that goes along with that. So if we could have, and we have until the end of June before the new rates to start in July. So if next month we could have a little bit more data to go along with this to make a more informed decision, that would be helpful. But in the meantime, we do need to approve signing the Rhode Island Resource Recovery contract here.
Okay,
So,
I will make a motion that we authorize the contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery. I don't know if that's signed by the council president or the manager, but that we approve the contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery.
Second.
all righty, so we have a motion and a second, and it just says for the municipality. So whether it's myself or the town manager or the DPW director who signs this, we can figure that out, but all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And I would also like to make a motion that we refer the solid waste fees back to the town manager to provide us with more information specific to the actual cost of what it costs us for the sticker, the cost of the stickers to actually for the dump fees. For what it actually costs to honor the 800-pound stickers.
Second.
All righty, we have a motion and a second referring back to Kate for more information. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. All righty. New business, discussion and action on the use of the town common as either a park and recreation area, a passive recreation site, or in its own category. And then we would move to a first reading if we so choose to decide on the appropriate uses of that space. Mr. DeSisto, are you still here? Yes, there you are. Could you maybe elaborate on what other options there might be as far as its own category?
The town common is not mentioned in the town code at all. That's the first thing. Under chapter 14, Parks and Recreation, you have the regulations for parks, recreation areas. That's Article 3. Article 4 is passive recreation sites and conservation areas. And Article 5 is athletic recreation sites and facilities. And in reviewing the code in these ordinances and these articles in chapter 14, I think the first question that the council would have to address in this matter is whether or not the town common fits in as a park and recreation area or a passive recreation site and conservation area. There's a listing in Article 4 of, the various sites. Town Common's not there. In Article 3, there's some mention of some of the parks, but not all. The Town Common is not mentioned in there. Now, the purpose that you have for the Town Common with all of the monuments there and the historical context of it, my first question was, does it fit into any of these sites as a policy matter? And yeah, to the extent that you need regulation for the site, should it have its own article with its own rules and regulations, as opposed to those for parks and recreation areas and passive recreation sites and conservation areas? And that's a policy consideration.
Mr. Hanley?
Anthony, would this be, seeing how it's land use, would it be prudent to refer this to the planning board?
You could do that. It's just that, you have this question on the on your agenda now. And to me, there's a predicate question, and the predicate question is, what is the nature of the Town Common? And is it unique because of what's there, and therefore requires a separate section? You could refer that out to the planning board. I'm not so sure that's in their area of expertise.
Okay, because the other commission I would want to take a look at it and hear back from would actually be the honor roll committee that actually handles the whole honor roll, which is right over there on the Town Common.
Well, that's the question, but I think what you need to do is make a determination as to the nature of the Town Common first, and you can definitely refer it out to any committee that you think is appropriate. But that to me, if the issue is what type of rules and regulations you need for that site, there is a regulatory scheme in the town code right now for other town properties that have a use that is not the same as this use.
Do you think this just fell through the cracks? Sorry, do you think this fell through the cracks and why there's no recognition of it?
No, I think it's a unique feature of your town. And as regulations were required for other sites that have more public use, those particular sites were added. And the last one that was added was, those passive recreation sites and conservation areas, as well as the athletic recreation sites and facilities. There was a time when your athletic fields had no regulations on them, but as time marched on, it seemed appropriate to do it. The Town Common doesn't fit in. Well, you may think it does. That's something for you to decide. But because of its unique nature, I think that's why it was never addressed.
Tony, can you just explain what does, how would you define a passive recreation site? What goes with that?
Well, I will go to Article 4 in Chapter 14, and the scheme there, and that's from 2018, by the way. Company street is defined, and for Company Street, it's the area is defined, and it says shall be kept and maintained to perpetuity as a passive recreation area to view and enjoy the waterscape panorama. That's a specific area, Company Street. The other conservation areas, and this dates from 2012, Kickamute River Site at Asylum Road, Belcher Cove, Town Beach, Burrs Hill Park, Market Street, land, that's Assessors Plat 23, Lot 14. Sousa property for the Palmer River, Kickamute River Brito, Kickamute River Asylum Road, Kickamute River Railway, Woodjick Farm, both Warren Reservoir and Heritage Park, and Jamiel Park. And I only put that in because you have the use of the conservation areas open to the general public, no horses and no vehicles of any kind, whether power or unpowered, except bicycles, and only in a manner consistent with their designation as conservation areas. So I just say that because what you've done is define the conservation areas themselves and how they can be used. And that's in the regulatory scheme. And most of these ordinances were passed, by the way, in 2018.
So you read the list of those town spaces that are considered passive recreation sites.
Passive recreation sites and conservation areas.
And conservation areas, they go together.
Correct.
And so Burrs Hill Park is considered passive recreation and conservation?
Yep.
But we drive vehicles over Burrs Hill Park all the time.
Yes.
So do we have enforcement issues? Are we approving events and activities in violation of our own policies and codes?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more of a question of the regulatory scheme than anything else, because, the use of Burrs Hill Park hasn't changed in some time. For whatever the reason, back in 2018, it was put in as a conservation area and passive recreation site, as opposed to park and recreation area or athletic facility.
Okay, but we use it, it's part of the Parks and Recreation group of spaces in town where we hold, athletics and summer camp and all of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of both Parks and Rec?
If there's an issue, then it should be recategorized.
Okay, but back to the town common, if the approved uses right now of a passive recreation or conservation site are that you can't drive a vehicle on them and you can't have horses and electricity. What was it? Sorry to make you repeat it, but
Open to the general public. No horses and no vehicles of any kind, except bicycles. Only in a manner consistent with their designation as conservation areas. Notwithstanding the foregoing, in any conservation area where a specific use is permitted, farming, public gardens, boat launching, the use shall be considered a permitted use in such area. All conservation area restrictions. Open to the general public daily from sunrise to sunset. Deposit any trash specifically prohibited. No person shall light, build, or make any fire in any conservation area unless first approved by the fire chief. No person shall maliciously take, pluck, injure, destroy, cut, mark, or deface any flower, root, plant, shrub, tree, building, fence, wall, gate, or monument, or any other property in any conservation area.
Can I have a clarity here? What is Burrs Hill Park identified as? And Jamiel's Park?
Burrs Hill Park and Jamiel's Park are in section 14-61, conservation areas. It's in your code book.
Well, that seems to be an error. And Mr. Heckert, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine, Joe. We're all trying to get clarity on this. I don't know, to me, the town common is in and of itself its own kind of entity. It isn't a park, it isn't a recreational park. It isn't a conservation site. It's the town common. And to me, it would make sense to treat it as such, just its own kind of entity. Because people can use it for leisure recreation or, you know, passive recreation, but not in the same way as you use a park or even a conservation site. So I think that's the way we should be treating this, as its own entity.
That's the predicate question I brought up earlier. So what you would do is have an Article 6 for the town common, would have its own special place in the town code.
Mr. Hanley?
If this was an Indian honor roll, would you guys feel the same way, or would you want to keep it solemn?
I'm not sure I understand that, the question.
If this was an Indian, if this was a native Indian honor roll, would you feel the same way, or would you want to keep it solemn instead of having concerts on the park?
Well, I don't think that I'm a little bit, it seems like a stretch that we are having this discussion because of an application to hold a very sort of low-key event there. I mean, we weren't proposing, it wasn't being suggested that Coachella happens in the town common from here on out. We were talking a couple of people, you know, singing and playing the guitar, which quite frankly happens anyways sometimes. I mean, I literally walked through the town common and had somebody sitting on a bench playing a guitar and singing, which I found very lovely. The idea, if it were an Indigenous Indian original peoples memorial, which is Burrs Hill Park, it requires its own level of honor and you know, respect, which clearly we don't think that holding events on Burrs Hill Park disrespects the ancient burial ground and the history that's attached there. We have events and you know, summer camps and all kinds of stuff going on there. Do we hold the veterans of this town in any different, greater, lower regard than we do the Native Americans, the original people to the area? I don't know.
Madam President, may I answer that loaded question? Because yes, John, you're 100% correct. We should remove use of Burrs Hill Park. We should remove the idea of playing in a cemetery is okay, and we should do it right with your lead. With
Then
your
be consistent.
John,
Don't pick and choose. Don't pick and choose.
Your
Be
lead,
consistent.
John. You brought up a great idea. You asked a question either out of mockery or natural curiosity, and if you're that curious, I'll answer you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Make a motion. Make a motion to remove it from everywhere, Joe.
I didn't interrupt you, Mr. Hanley. I didn't interrupt you.
Order,
and
order,
then point out the
order.
bodies that are buried at the common, and then we can have that discussion.
Okay, we need to take it down a notch. I think that John's question, while loaded, absolutely, it triggers some reasonable conversation. And I think there are probably a lot of people who have conflated our respect and handling of our own veterans of, you know, various wars to the way we treat the natives, the original people, the Indians. These are conversations that are happening everywhere. They do not need to turn into hot accusations and explosive. There are respectful ways of having these conversations, and clearly a lot of people have a lot of heavy emotion around them, but we need to keep it a little bit more respectful.
Madam President, may I have a moment, please?
You may, yes. And then after you, Mr. Hecker.
Sure. So I've been listening to, as my fellow council members are weighing in on this matter. There was a very old saying when I was working, and I was working all over this country and this planet. If it looked like a duck and it walked like a duck, it must be a duck. So why don't we just, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and do this and do that and identify what this place should be and that place should be, there's been concerts at Burrs Hill Park since I can remember, okay? So that would probably be the logical place for us to have our music events. If an individual who, by the way, they had their event approved and then chose to withdraw it for whatever reason, wants to make application to have an event at the Common, then we should take it under advisement. But if we want to come up with a policy, then the policy should be just that. If the place for the concerts is Burrs Hill Park, then that's the place. And if the place for the War Memorial and the Honor Roll is the Town Common, then that's the place. The unfortunate aspect of this town is that we don't have two different areas. We have one area that's multi-purpose. We have a Town Common and a War Memorial that's the same place. And when I did my research and I looked all over this country on different areas, it was almost like it was a split, what they allowed and what they didn't allow. So instead of all the back and forth and a little bit of passion that's going on, why don't we just have the concerts where the concerts belong at Burrs Hill Park? That's all I have.
Mr. Hacker?
Thank you. I don't think it's an either or, and I think there's room for both. You know, I look at the letter that Mr. McCarthy wrote to us, which I don't know if you've all read it, but I read it, and I actually happen to agree with Mr. McCarthy in the sense that he says the Town Common should not be turned into a concert venue with food trucks and big screen videos. I agree with Mr. McCarthy. That's not what it should be. No, we shouldn't have fireworks and bands and concerts, and no, that's not what we should have over there. It's the Town Common. Yes, it's a reticent place. It should be somewhat serene, but it's not a cemetery. There's room for both, a war memorial and passive use, as Council President said, and I can attest to this because I live right across the street. I can look out my window right now and see what's happening over there. Yes, people bring their instruments, they play, they're respectful, and I don't see why there isn't room for both of these things to happen. Now, if you want to, as Mr. McCarthy said, it should be a reverent place. Well, do you want to kick all the kids out that ride their scooters and their skateboards all over the Common? Do you want to kick them out because they're not being reverent to the war memorials? I don't think that's the intent, and I don't think the people whose names are on those monuments would agree that we should exclude everybody off of that Common unless they're there for that specific reason of the war memorial. So I think there's room for both. Now, if you don't want to designate that area specifically, and we want to take applications for entertainment on a case-by-case basis, I'm comfortable with that. We make a decision on a case-by-case basis. That's fine with me if we don't want to actually designate it specifically and put all rules and regulations on it. But I do think there's room for both. And again, I see it all the time. I see what happens over there. Most people are very respectful. Yeah, and the kids will go over there and they'll have fun, but we don't want to exclude them. We don't want to exclude a couple of people who want to play guitars over there. I think that would be wrong, and that's not the intent of a Town Common. Yes, which happens to have a war memorial on it as well. So that's my.
Madam President, may I?
One more time, Mr. DePasquale, yes.
I want clarity since I'm the one, last time this was discussed, made an example of, not a comparative analysis. I made an example of how modern times have made it somehow acceptable to play on a Native American cemetery. That was my point. This is not a discussion that is in any way comparing one to the other than the very specific, when we're told, go down there, go over there, or when the white man killed the Indians and stole their land, that cemetery became desecrated holy ground for the white man to hold concerts, baseball games, and flying kites, because nobody cared about them. That is not what I am comparing. I care about this site. I care about the names on that site. I care about the town that we live in. My point is to make sure that we as an acting body take into account our actions for the future. I have no problem declaring the town common no longer a common. It has now been usurped since 150 years ago when the cannon went up, or after the Civil War. Historians can say when that cannon went up. I believe that site originally became town open space as that war memorial, the cannon, because of the burning down of the fire station. That historians and Mr. Calendar, I'm sure your brother can clarify the historical aspect of when the town got that, because the fire station was there, it burned down, it's the fire memorial, and it probably was a very appropriate place to put the military cannon that came back. I think it was after the Civil War. I don't want to make this in any way a comparison to how we've treated the Native Americans. My point was about the park being so appropriate for everything. It's appropriate because the Pokanokets have given us permission to continue not what our direct relatives did, but what the people did to their direct relatives. They allow us that opportunity and that grace to be playing in a cemetery. That has to be on the record. That is a cemetery. And it's not a comparative analysis. I'm done.
Thank you. So in deciding how we want to designate the town common, or deciding whether we are going to at all, or just leave it to exist as it has existed for a very long time and not putting a label on it, I'm not opposed to the idea of just accepting applications for use of that space as they come along. I think that the decision of the council to the last application, I was comfortable with that decision. I was in the majority of that decision. And the applicants withdrew because they felt that it was the way they wanted to go. But we all know how the town common is used just on a day-to-day basis, with people enjoying that space in a quiet way, in a reflective way, in a peaceful way, as Mr. McCarthy would like to see it happen. It's a public gathering space. And kids climb all over that cannon monument thing. People sit on it, they smoke, they drink their coffee, they eat their lunch, whatever. It's become just a space for people to gather and enjoy the town. So,
Madam President, not to interrupt you or anything, but Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, if that's a public park, there's not supposed to be any smoke in there, right? That's state law.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right, well, the next time you walk through and you see somebody smoking their cig, you maybe can use some force on them and get them to stop. Make a citizen's arrest. It
I think
is,
you want to walk back that comment with use of force, just so you know in today's times.
so, yeah, I mean, people live their lives in the town common, and they do what they do. So if we must designate it as something, let's designate it the town common, and it is the center of town, and it is a place where people gather, and it is a place where people come to sit and reflect, or sit passively, or have a picnic, or do what they do. And if somebody wants to use it, they can apply to the council for approval.
Madam President, I'm sorry, you just made something that just came to mind. Why do we have to designate it to begin with? How does this end on our agenda?
That is discussion and action on the use of the town common as either a park and recreation area, a passive recreation site, or its own category. We don't have to do it. We can just not designate it as anything. Am I correct, Mr. DeSisto?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
So if it ain't broke, why we fixing it?
There was significant outreach from members of the public to make a decision on it. And so an agenda item was created, and, you know, it seemed as though there was some appetite to set policy on how it should be used. And if that is no longer the case, I'm comfortable with leaving it as it is and has sort of evolved to be. And if people want to hold a special event there, they can apply and ask for permission, and we can debate it and either approve or deny. And I'm comfortable with that.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we stand fast and we don't change a thing. And just as the council president mentioned, if somebody wants to make application to use it, so be it.
Mr. Hanley?
I'll second
Unmute.
that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to leave it as is, and it is seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that was good. NB1, check. Town manager. Discussion and action and authorization for the town council president to execute an operation and maintenance contract with H2O Innovation Operation and Maintenance LLC associated with the wastewater treatment plant. We heard about this contract last month, and now it needs to be signed. Ms. Michaud, do you have anything to add?
No, the contract has been reviewed by Attorney DeSisto. It's been vetted by town staff, and we're excited to start with this new company with the council's permission. And I would like to note that existing staff at the plant will be retained, so you will not be seeing a change in personnel. But I do believe that this new contract will give us greater control, and that we will have I am very hopeful that we will have an excellent relationship with this new company.
And when does it start, Kate?
July 1st.
July 1st. All right, thank you.
I will motion that we authorize the town council president to execute an operation maintenance contract with H2O Innovation Operation and Maintenance LLC associated with the wastewater treatment plant.
I will second that. I just want to ask if the solicitor has reviewed it. Should we make pending approval by the solicitor?
No, I reviewed it.
Okay, good. I'll second that motion.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ms. Michaud?
I would also like to note, you'll see in this contract that there is a fee of the base fee is stated in section 7 compensation, and that fee is held for the term of the contract. which is very nice for us for budgeting purposes. So some good news.
That's 5 years, isn't it, Kate?
Yes.
Thank you.
So Tony,
All right.
I made some red lines. I mean, are you good with the red lines that I had made?
If the motion could just be modified, subject to further review by the town solicitor.
I will, it's your motion, Grant.
I'll amend my motion as such.
I'll second the amended motion.
Thank you.
We need to revote.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All righty. Solicitor, executive session according to RIGL 42-46-5A, 2 sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, discussion pertaining to collective bargaining with United Steelworkers, Local 14845. Do a roll call for this. I will start with Mr. DePasquale.
Aye.
Mr. Kalenda.
Aye.
Mr. Hecker.
Aye.
And Mr. Hanley.
Aye.
I vote aye. So when we do convene after the rest of the meeting is over, you should all have a link to the executive session. Are you all in possession of that link?
Yes.
And then we will return here.
I should add, by the way, that Mr. Antonucci from my office will be leading the discussion on that. He's been active with the town manager on the matter.
Very good. Next, we have Finance Director, an update on revenue and expenditures. Ms. Chan, are you there? And if so, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Yes, I'm here. Do you have any questions? Yep.
Just an observation that some of those revenue numbers are actually looking pretty good. So.
Yes, some of them are. And we are also underspend on expenditures as well too. So yeah, so far is we're still in the positive trend.
Yes.
If I could, it's more of a statement than a question. I want to just acknowledge the amount of work and effort you're putting in with all of the legislation that's come down federally. And I appreciate the fact that you're able to do it. And the town, we can see the results from the numbers all adding up. So thank you. You make our job a lot easier.
Thank you. And I want to thank the council that for the accountant too. It helps.
Good.
Were there any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Chan, very much. We all are very appreciative of your hard work. Next, we have the Recreation Director, discussion and action regarding over expenditure of Recreation Director wages line, account number 01-560-12-1010 in the amount of $3,000. Ms. Thibodeau, I believe you are there, and this happens every year for when you've got your Parks and Rec staff, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further explanation? This amount seems like in line with what you usually need to do?
Yes, I don't know if anyone has any questions. This is just so that I can finish out the remainder of the year.
I will make a motion. We approve the over expenditure in the amount of $3,000 to the Recreation Director's wages line.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Harbor Master Mr. Cabral, you are back. I hope you are okay and recovered. We have discussion and action and authorization for the town council president to execute a construction agreement in the amount of $35,000 with Addispace LLC to construct and install new bathrooms at the town wharf This is a master price agreement. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cabral on this contract?
No, it looked like a pretty good project.
Mr. Heckert,
If
your
I
hand went up
could-
first. Yep, Mr. Heckert's hand went up first, and then Mr. DePasquale.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Cabral.
Good evening.
How are you?
So far, so good.
All right. Do you have an idea what the full cost will be? Because the price doesn't include delivery, site preparation, installation of local services such as electric, water, and sewer. I imagine that's going to add considerably to this.
Yeah, site preparation is actually going to be handled by DPW. They are delivering. They're only in Bristol. I don't imagine the delivery cost is going to be all that expensive. And the electrical, we have an electrical line right near the site. And the electrician I use on a regular basis has already looked at it. So it's not going to be a big deal for him to hook it up. And as far as the sewer, it's actually a holding tank system. So it's all self-contained. So there won't be any sewer hookup. So.
Okay.
Mr. Eckert, I would just add that we have the additional cost of the storage tanks, the holding tanks, which is approximately $6,000. So we shouldn't exceed 45 in total. But that's a separate contract from out of space.
I do have a follow-up for Mr. Cabral. The fees we're charging for the slips, are they in line with other communities?
Yes, actually, but as far as the municipal docks, yes, yeah, we're in line with that, with other communities. There aren't many that have them, but just the neighboring town in Bristol charges actually just a little less than us for their residents, and not all that much more for their non-residents. So they just have more. They just have more slips to offer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. DePasquale, do you have questions?
No, I have a statement that I wanted the public to hear in regards to the reason and justification for these restrooms. They're a requirement by statute because we have the slips. The restrooms have been on site by a private owner. The property has changed hands. The responsibility to have those restrooms hasn't gone away, and there was a cost associated with the restrooms prior as well. So if anyone has any financial questions regarding this action, there is a very concrete reason and answer that can be given. So if anybody wants a longer answer to that question, just submit it, and we'll be glad to give the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. And it's actually at a cost savings, I think, down the road.
Thank you. And these bathrooms, what's the beginning on the timeline on installation? If it's in there, maybe you could just remind us.
Yep, so the company that's constructing them told us that once we provide the order, once this is approved, then it'll be three weeks, no longer than 4 weeks to delivery.
Very good. And these restrooms would be available for all public use or exclusively for the slips, those who are renting or using our town slips?
No, these are being provided for marina use only.
Okay, so there will be keys provided to the boat owners?
We're putting a code on the doors. There'll be a key code lock system on the door.
All righty, so we should we make this motion for the 35,000? Will there be another approval at the next meeting for the additional costs of those utilities and whatnot, or should we say 35 and not to exceed 45?
The contract with Space is just for the manufacturer and installation of the bathrooms. The other expenses are outside of their contract. They're not going to exceed, anything that we would have to bid. So I don't want to put the cost of the holding tanks and other things into the Space contract.
I will make a motion. We approve the bid of $35,000 for the bathrooms at the town wharf.
I'll second the motion for the town council president to execute the agreement.
Yep.
Thank you.
All righty, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Did we
Thank you.
lose? I think we maybe lost somebody, but okay. Next, we have tax assessor. We have a couple of abatements. Mr. Leadham, are you here with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So as you see, I just have a couple pretty straightforward abatements for the 2020 year. I have an abatement of $106.61. This is a tangible account that should have been abated. And then for 2019, I have an amount of $1,598.07. And this was a prorated property that became exempt that year.
I will make a motion. We abate the 2020 tax roll in the amount of $106.61. And we abate the 2019 tax roll in the amount of $1,598.07.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. And now we can take a moment's break. It is, according to my phone, 9:55 p.m. Where did the time go? Let us reconvene to executive session. And we'll see you all in there at 10, okay?
Yep.
All righty.
94 today.
All right, we're all back.
Okay, I will make a motion to seal the executive session minutes.
Second.
We have a motion to seal the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will make a motion to have the solicitor and the manager proceed as instructed in executive session towards contract negotiations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
I
I
make a
will,
motion to adjourn.
I will second that one, Joe.
In the memory of my mother, today's her birthday. She would have been 94.
Wow,
Oh, happy
nice.
birthday.
Nice.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye,
all
guys.
in- Good night, and all in favor, yay.
Yay.
Hey, Steve, I'll talk to you tomorrow.